Welcome one and all to D-Side Chat. Today I am your host. My name is Edward Turner. Today we're going to talk about which programming languages you need to know to be in data science. Let's imagine this. Let's put ourselves in this situation. We have some data we want to interact with. Maybe it's a file on your computer. Maybe it's some data stored in some database. Maybe it's data stored in the cloud. How do you interact with that? How do you grab that data and then perform your analysis on it? You can use tools like Microsoft Excel, and that's been very useful in the past, but you need something more powerful, something that can handle more than maybe a million rows. Maybe you have something called big data. How do you interact with that? How do you deal with that? Well, this is where programming languages come into play. There are three languages overall that we're going to discuss. And they come in two different flavors, dynamic and compiled. And we'll discuss more of that throughout the video. So thank you for joining. Please remember to subscribe and please also like the video. Our first language to talk about is Python. Python is an extremely popular and extremely powerful programming language. You may have actually heard about it already at this point due to its popularity in data science. Python has the ability to read, with the help of some different programming packages, read from your computer, read data from a database, or even read it from the cloud. Yes, Python is extremely versatile. You can use it for practically everything. You can create a web application that interacts with a model that serves predictions at near real time. Yes, Python is an extremely powerful language that can be truly utilized to bring solutions to really anyone, whether a customer, being someone that's buying from your product, or you, as you're trying to actually feed in data so you can feed it to somewhere else within your own organization or even one of your pet projects. And so Python is an extremely valuable tool. I suggest you use it and learn how to use it because it's going to be here for a very long time. And one other key feature about Python that I really appreciate and like is its ability to interact with big data. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's two specific programming packages out right now that's heavily supported. One you may have maybe heard about already if you have done some research, Apache Spark. That's a big data processing framework that Python's able to utilize. And then you also have Dask, which is another big data processing framework, which is more based off of the Pandas Python package, which you may have heard of at this point. Pandas is a programming package that reads in data from various different formats into a columnar data that you can interact with inside of a Python script, just to give you a brief overview in case you have it. But it's extremely powerful, extremely useful, and I use it for work, both Dask and Apache Spark and Pandas. And so, again, use Python, learn it as much as you can, because it's going to be here for a very long time. R. R is another language that's used heavily within data science. R originally is a language that was developed for statisticians primarily. So statisticians will utilize R for various different types of statistical tests on data. It would enable statisticians the ability to understand what is going on within the data and then be able to write a report based off the information and create some very nice visualizations of that. This is the very same thing that you would want to be able to do in data science. In data science, we want to be able to perform maybe statistical tests. We may actually also want to perform some data visualization and be able to visualize our information. And there are a lot of other very interesting R libraries that aren't available in Python that I actually have liked using in the past, such as Amelia or Boruto, which utilize a random forest in the backend to handle very nice things. Data imputation on a whole feature set, and then also feature importance. And by utilizing random forest, it's able to detect those. And that's really only available in R. There's ways to support it in Python, but it's not easy. So R is extremely powerful in and of itself. I suggest that if you're not looking into like software development stuff, and you're just looking more from a data, science, data analysis front, I suggest you look into R a little bit more than maybe Python. But Python's still there. You definitely need to learn Python. Last but not least, Scala. Scala is a programming language that is unbelievably complicated, but also powerful. It's a language that's more or less used for data engineering specific tasks, although it does has the capability to do model training and model inferencing. Apache Spark is built off of Scala. And so you're actually able to use Apache Spark directly in Scala without any other third-party package, which is what you have to do with Python, and also R too. R can use Apache Spark, but it's through another package, third-party package that is supported by Apache Spark, but it's not at the same level of customization and flexibility as you would have it within Scala. So what you gain with Scala is a few different niceties, such as the dataset API, which enables you to actually optimize your read time of reading in data and saving data. Meanwhile, that's more or less left up to Python and R to figure that out for you as it's reading information. But with Scala, you actually can optimize that read and write, which depending on how big your data sets are, that actually might mean something that might matter. And also, Scala is what's called a compile language, which means that the instructions are all figured out at the time of compilation, not the time of running, which is what happens with Python and R. R and Python figures things out at runtime. Not at the time you write your code, but at runtime, which means when you execute your code, Python and R are trying to figure out the types of all your data, whether data from the database or data, or even objects that you define within your individual programs. And so you end up, over time, depending on how complicated things are, slowing down your application just due to Python or trying to read and then figure things out. Scala doesn't have that. Scala, you have to tell Scala up front what's going on, but then you're able to use it. So if you're interested more in the data engineering side of things, or if you're dealing with data that's in the gigabytes, petabytes, then Scala might be the package that you're interested in. Bear in mind though, again, due to a lot of the work by Apache, specific for Apache Spark, a lot of the optimizations that you typically have in Scala have been moved to what's called an optimizer that is built within the framework. So instead of the programming language had to figure things out, the optimizer does. And so a lot of the optimizations that you in speed up you would get is going to be from the framework rather than the language. So you're not stuck to choosing Python or R just for certain tasks and stuck with Scala for Apache Spark. There's some flexibility, but there are some niceties that you get with Scala. So if you want to utilize that, use Scala. If you don't really care and you can deal with the overhead, then use Python or R. Now, which language should you choose? Well, this is going to be based on your project and your interests overall. I use Python primarily for all of my work. Very rarely do I even look at R or Scala for that matter. As much as I love Scala, and don't get me wrong, I love Scala. It just so happens that with workflows, it's much easier just dealing with Python. And so it really depends on your workflow. I've used to work with R a lot. Actually, that was my first language that I learned to use for data science specific tasks, and then I switched to Python. So I'm not biased for or against one of these three languages just based off how much I use it. I actually have love for R. I use Python extensively, and I have love for Scala because of all the things that you can do with it that you can't really trace back to Python or R. So I love all three. So it really depends on what you think is going to be important for you and your future and your intentions. If you want to be more of a data scientist, pure data scientist, without focusing on data visualizations, but also not focusing on big data, Python might just be your primary. If you're focusing more on software engineering and big data, then a combination of Python and Scala might be your best bet. And if you are more of a data visualization, data analysis type person, and you want to have the ability to loop into some of the other packages that normally available first on Python, then loop in Python. So it really depends on what you want to do with your career, and so that's where I suggest that you should invest your time in, whichever one you feel like is going to be good for you. Thank you again for watching the show, watching another show of D-Side Chats. Please subscribe to my channel and then like the video for me. Okay? Alright, ciao.